that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 367th edition of Energy Week. We are recording this on Thursday, the 16th of April, 2020, and we are reporting news about energy and climate change starting on April 9th through April 15th. This information comes from my blog. I'm George Harvey. Oh, and by the way, here I am, George Harvey, Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and the amazing Tom Fennell. I should have done that right from the get-go.
I haven't gone anywhere.
Okay. We're starting on April 9th, and as I was saying, the news items here are all at my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. Most people watching this are going to have some sort of representation of a website that they can visit or a file that they can download. But the geoharvey.com website is one that you can go to. And if you want to read a particular article, we'll try to keep you apprised of the date that it appeared at the blog. And you can click on that date on the calendar and find it among the 15 or so items that appear there. So
some of them are well worth looking at.
Yeah, they are.
I'll try to mention some of the better ones as we go.
Yeah. I had quite a lot of fun with this first one. The first one starts with a picture, excuse me, of an oil tanker. And this particular article, which was in Clean Technica, I didn't see a picture there that I liked, so I went to Wikipedia Commons and got the picture of the oil tanker.
This looks like an ore boat to me.
It looks like an ore boat to me. I looked at that thing and I saw a thing that said it was a super tanker. And you know, Tom, what I did with this was I actually did a search on the image, and I found that this is probably an bulk oil carrier of the bridge class.
I looked that up. I can talk about it.
What's that?
I've looked that up, and I can talk about it. There's a couple interesting things about it.
Yeah, the thing that made me think, and probably the same thing that made you think that this looked more like an ore ship than an oil ship, is that it doesn't have pipes running along the deck. It looks like it's got it's got a series of hold covers.
That seems to me to be what it had too. Well, it did.
Yeah, it did.
It was designed to carry either ore or oil. And the idea was it would carry oil going in one direction and carry ore in the other direction to make a little bit more money for its owners.
Yeah, because
it might work out.
If you think about it, an oil-carrying ship that's leaving the United States, say Seattle, to take oil to Tokyo, for example, what's it going to carry back in the hold, which is designed to hold oil? It's not going to carry oil.
They should have figured out that it could carry back cars.
Yes, which will arrive in Seattle all smelling like oil. But anyway, we should probably deal with the article. This is from Clean Technica.
Well, it was interesting because I did look up into this particular ship, and it was star-crossed. They made about 7 of them. They had hard luck on all of them. It wasn't all because of the ship. I mean, they had typhoons. 2 of them sank. Yeah. They only made 7, and they're all out of service now. They've all been scrapped.
I should mention, by the way, this ship is supposed to displace 91,655 tons, and that is roughly twice.
Wrote that 91,655.
Yeah, roughly twice the displacement of the largest battleship in the world in 1940.
Was it? I never compared to that, but you can see it's a little bit bigger than a battleship.
You can tell just by looking at it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's get going on the article because it relates to this.
Yes, it does. What do you got for a title?
Millions of barrels of oil nobody wants are floating in the ocean. I think we're going to touch base on this more than once.
We're going to do that. Oil demand is in free fall. By the way, this is no longer the situation, but oil demand is in free fall thanks to green technology and a pandemic. Oil is at its lowest price in decades, but that hasn't stopped production. And now millions and millions of barrels of crude are stuck in massive oil tankers waiting for things to go back to normal. The thing I was going to say about this is no longer the situation is that one thing that I just didn't mention was the trade war, which, according to reports, has ended. But we'll get to that later.
Get to that. That's it is a significant thing this week.
Yes, it is.
So there's a little takeaway here.
Yeah.
Our illustrious leader said, every ship is now loaded to the gills with oil. There's oil all over the oceans right now.
Yeah.
It's a great time to be in the fuel storage business. And there's a picture of a graph of some profits, and they're up.
For storage.
Yeah.
But profits for oil are not up.
No, that's profits for storage.
Yeah.
And it hasn't even mentioned the effect of electric cars, which is going to affect oil very seriously.
Yes.
In the very near future.
In the very near future. It's already starting.
That's happening already.
It is. Okay.
Well, we got another one coming up here, and I'll read the title.
Okay. We have a picture here of a black squirrel monkey.
Yeah, I was going to say, that looks... well, we don't have a... We're not up. Yeah, that'll be up on the web, won't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's not black, but here's the interesting thing. It looks like Groucho Marx.
You're seeing a mustache on this little guy.
Yeah.
But the colors aren't black. It looks more like a bowl of sherbet for the colors.
Yeah, a little orange there and a little cream on it.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is an interesting article, by the way. It's from The Guardian.
Yes. You got a title?
Wildlife destruction, not a slippery slope, but a series of cliff edges. By the way, this was written by someone named Fiona Harvey. Do you know her?
No, I've never met Fiona Harvey. And I would say that she's probably young enough to be my granddaughter, but that's okay. Maybe I could say that she's young enough to be a niece or a great niece. Okay, wildlife species will die out and natural ecosystems collapse in the near future if the climate crisis goes unchecked, scientists have warned. New research shows that the natural world is at far greater risk from climate breakdown than previously thought.
Well, the article says that species in Indonesia, India, the Amazon, northern Australia, and sub-Saharan Africa, and the Congo are likely to disappear in the 2040s.
Yeah, this is, and basically they say not a slippery slope, but a series of cliff edges. It sounds to me like these species could get into trouble and disappear very quickly once this
starts happening, it's irreversible, it seems.
Well, the species dying out and going extinct, I don't know what they would do about that.
Well, it says that ocean ecosystems will be the first ones hit.
Well, they're already being hit.
They're already being hit, yeah. And there's tipping points.
Yes, tipping points. Right.
By the way, a very interesting thing here, if you really want to, you can go to the website, and you can listen to the sound of an iceberg melting. And I'm not kidding.
No.
It doesn't sound very thrilling.
No, it doesn't.
But it is an interesting article.
Yes, it is. Okay, going on?
I think we can go on, yep.
Still on Thursday, the 9th of April, and we have an item from Renew Economy.
We got a picture there of a coal-fired plant in Wyoming.
That's right, we do.
And it's from Renew Economy, and it says, despite Trump's big talk, U.S. coal production falls to the lowest levels since 1981.
Yeah. Based on weekly production estimates, S&P Global Market Intelligence has said that U.S. coal production through the first quarter of 2020 fell to its lowest level since 1981, with production estimates suggesting only 151 million tons of coal were produced.
Well, we've been talking about that. These companies are all going bankrupt.
They are, and the coal is just not being used. In fact, I think it was last week we talked about how the Trump administration had seen that our domestic use of coal was in decline, so they were trying to build up markets abroad in order to keep miners employed and busy and profitable. And unfortunately for that effort, our exports are in decline too, and that was even before the coronavirus hit.
Well, coal is it's a thing of the past, really.
Yeah, it is.
So we got a quick takeaway here.
Okay.
Coal production fell during the fourth quarter of 2019 as well as the first quarter of this year. U.S. coal exports have also fallen, and Standard & Poor's is blaming plunging electricity demand due to the COVID-19 recession. Well, that's helping, but that's not what's doing it.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing, Tom.
And renewable energy sources will account for the largest proportion of new generation capacity in 2020.
Well, wasn't it 72% or something in 2019?
I don't have the number, but that sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Friday, April 10th, and we have a picture of a solar farm being built.
That's what it looks like. It looks like a rather large solar farm.
That I looked at that and I thought those things in the background look like big brush strokes of,
I think they're solar panels.
They are the rails that the solar panels will be mounted on.
Oh, is that what they are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So these are just laying there on the ground and getting ready to be assembled.
Well, the solar panels will be attached to those.
Yeah, but I mean, the solar panels we're seeing in the foreground are waiting to be attached to them.
I don't know.
Oh.
I thought they were attached to a different set. Anyway, this article is from CNBC.
Which is NBC. I don't know why they use the C, but it's the national broadcasting company.
Yeah, the C is for consumers, and it's not national. It is National Broadcast Company, but it's the NBC. I've forgotten what that's for. It's not quite National Broadcast Company.
That's what it meant, but it's just gotten so much bigger now.
Yes. So what do you got for a title?
Europe's largest solar power facility comes online as the industry faces coronavirus challenges.
Yeah, a 500 megawatt PV plant described by Spanish utility Iberdrola as the world's largest, that's in quotes, is sending energy to the grid, a welcome bright spot for an industry that in months ahead could experience difficulties brought on by the coronavirus pandemic.
Well, they have named this plant after Balboa.
Yes.
The Spanish explorer who discovered the Pacific.
Yes. I think somebody else discovered the Pacific before he did.
Well, he was the first European, supposedly. I mean, he saw it from Panama. He didn't go around the bottom of South America.
Yeah, and he saw that the waves were lower than they were in the Atlantic, so he
gave it the name Pacific.
That's right. Yeah, because it was relatively calm and peaceful.
In any case, this Balboa facility has 1.5 million panels, and it supplies enough energy to take care of 250,000 people.
It's big. A 500 megawatt PV plant is big. There's no question about that. I mean, the one at the landfill in Brattleboro is 5 megawatts, so
It's a biggie.
100 times that size. And when that went in, it was the biggest one in Vermont.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to go on?
Yeah, we got an interesting picture here.
Yes, this is a funny picture. This is from PBC.
And the picture is a pumping jack in somebody's backyard. Boy, I'd hate to hear that.
Yeah, yes.
Gotta drive you nuts.
This
People in Vermont are afraid of
wind turbines.
Wind turbines.
I want to point something out here, Tom.
Yeah.
On the roof of that building, they have rocks.
Looks like rocks, yes, to hold the roof on, I guess.
It looks like sheep grazing in that backyard.
It looks like that, too. And you can see some rebar sticking out of the roof.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't know that's what that was, but I'm sure you're right.
Definitely not in the U.S. We don't do that, but that's commonplace in the Middle East.
Yeah.
In Saudi Arabia, they got a law that you don't have to pay full taxes till you finish building. So they never finish building.
Yes.
They always have these rebars sticking up to the roof for a potential second floor, which never gets built.
Yeah. Well, that makes a great deal of sense. Not that we didn't do that here. I mean, we had at one time taxes on windows, I think, or something, and there were a number of taxes like that were our architecture during the colonial period and after was influenced by the taxes.
Let's move on to this thing. There's a name to it. Oil producers agree to cut production by a tenth.
Well, OPEC producers and allies have agreed to cut output by around 10% to counter the slump in demand caused by coronavirus lockdowns. The group said it could cut output in May. Now, May is next month, and June by 10 million barrels to keep to help prop up prices. The cut.
There's more on this that's happened just during a week, which we'll touch a little bit.
Yes.
On later.
I read this and I said to myself, is this really going to have any effect on the price of oil? Yeah, it'll have an effect, but I don't think it'll be a big effect because I think a 10% cut in production is still going to have more being produced than is being used.
It is. Well, we'll touch base on that too, but I think I agree with you.
Yeah, okay. You want to go on?
Well, the article says that helped to push the prices of oil to an 18-year low.
Yeah.
And it also says prices have recovered some ground since.
Yeah. Well,
They're still low.
We've been talking about how the oil producers are in trouble for weeks. So
Well, we'll be touching base with it again.
Yes, we will. Okay.
An interesting picture here of a hydrolyzer.
Electrolyzer.
Electrolysis, electrolyzer.
That's right.
This high school chemistry brought up to date.
Yeah, this is from Green Tech Media.
Green hydrogen pipeline surges on a wave of announced mega projects. And this is an interesting thing. Green hydrogen is something to keep an eye on.
It sure is. The pipeline of electrolyzers to produce hydrogen from renewable energy has nearly tripled in just 5 months. We're talking about this is growth that is just unimaginable almost. Wood Mackenzie said that. In updated green hydrogen data, it updated green hydrogen data in a report published last October following an avalanche of new projection announcements. In other words, I'm going to have to say this again. It made the report last October, but it had to update it because things were so different.
Well, the article says that as of March, that pipeline had increased to 8 gigawatts.
Yes.
That's 30 times today's installed capacity.
Yeah. I mean, this is like, I don't remember anything coming on this fast. I mean, computers didn't come on this fast.
Well, it's an answer to the problem of storing electricity.
Yeah, it is not just that, though, Tom. You know, you can store the electricity in hydrogen in one place and then move it to another place.
And that's what's happening.
Yeah, and they're actually talking, and I find it kind of mind-boggling to think about this. I can't imagine that it would actually happen. But they're talking about green hydrogen being produced in Australia.
Big in Australia.
What?
It's big in Australia.
And then the hydrogen being liquefied and shipped to Japan.
Interesting, isn't it?
Well,
who'd have thunk?
Hydrogen liquefies at like 20 degrees Kelvin. This stuff is not just...
You gotta keep it cold.
It's not just cold. It's unbelievably cold.
That's true.
Yeah, it is. You know, I mean, it's so cold that, well, it's just unbelievable. I've seen people take, for example, a goldfish and drop it in liquid nitrogen and then pull it out, hit it with a hammer.
And it shatters.
And it shatters. Another goldfish going in and coming out, put into water, will be swimming around in a few minutes.
Yeah, it recovers. That's amazing, isn't it?
Isn't it? But this stuff is so cold by comparison with that liquid nitrogen. It's crazy.
You don't want to put your finger in it, I'll tell you that.
Man, I think you'd leave your finger behind.
It would just fall right off, huh?
I don't know. I don't know. I've had a little bit of experience with liquid nitrogen, and one of the weirdest things I ever saw was because of liquid nitrogen. But I think I'll tell that tale another time. I'm not sure that we have time.
That could take a while.
It could. Oh,
well, let's move on here.
We're up to Saturday, April 11th.
Are we ready? Yeah, we certainly are.
And we have
there are plenty of coal.
That was my caption I put on, and that image actually did come from the U.S. DOE.
Well, it's true we have more coal. It's also true we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. It's like having Confederate currency.
Well, in any case, the title says coal companies want you to pay their debts. That doesn't surprise me any.
Clean Technica had this. The coal industry and what is left of it wants American taxpayers to cover more of the debts of treating black lung disease and cleaning up abandoned mines.
Well, why should they pay for it?
Yeah, right. You know, and the Washington Post reported this. This is precisely the kind of corporate money grab that some apologists of the so-called free market celebrate. You know, I read that and I thought, no, free market apologists don't celebrate that.
Well, the free market people don't really want free markets.
Well, maybe what we should do, Tom, is distinguish between people who really do want a free market and people who say they do but don't.
Bingo.
Because the guys I've known who were, and I knew a lot of them, who were really into the free market, you know, and thought it was such a wonderful idea, would not tolerate this. Absolutely not. This, you know, the free market is not there so people can get tax giveaways. And just imagine this. This is something that, you know, an administration that was largely put into office by libertarians who hate taxes.
Yeah.
This is the result.
No, the little takeaway from it sort of explains it. It's heads I win, tails you lose.
Yes.
It glorifies corporate profits, demonizes big government, then sticks taxpayers with the bill.
Yeah.
They call us privatizing the profits and socializing the costs.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Little takeaway here, it's unrelated to it really. I happened to watch a movie the other night by random called Mine 9.
Mine 9?
Mine 9. And it was interesting because it's about coal mining, and the picture was very genuine. It was actually taken in a coal mine.
Oh, really?
If you look up Mine Line and you watch that movie, it's about an hour and a half. It's not a great movie, but it's authentic. You'll see what it's like inside of a coal mine.
Well, the closest I ever got was the coal mine exhibit in the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. When I was a kid, we'd go on class visits in one of those visits.
I was in an operating mine, but it wasn't operating in the section I was in.
Ah.
But it's real. I mean, I went down there to inspect some equipment, some machinery, and really to inspect some cables because they weren't working the way they were supposed to. And I remember the guy from the mine holding up a piece of cable and flexing it. He said, I like this ITT cable. It talks to you. And it turned out to be the reason why the cable was failing. They made the cable with a piece of paper around the copper.
Oh.
And the copper was sliding around inside this cable. And it's all well and good if you're just going to trail it on the ground like an extension cord. But this cable was reeling and unreeling, and it was causing trouble. It was failing.
Yeah. I remember those cables. The one that I remember is Ethernet cables. And in the early days of Ethernet, just a little pressure on one of those cables was enough to make it fail.
Is that so?
Yeah, and
we're talking big, heavy industrial cables now.
I know that. This is a very different thing, and of the cables being wound and unwound, I can understand how that would cause failure.
Well, it did. We solved it.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on here to a picture of some flooding in Baltimore.
Yeah, in 2008, and this is an item from DeSmog.
DeSmog, I don't even have that, but I got it later. Oh, we're going to talk about it again later. Baltimore, Rhode Island argue they're suing fossil fuel companies over climate deception.
Right.
This is an interesting article.
It is an interesting article. At a time when fossil fuel companies are using public health crisis to demand financial and regulatory support, the governments of Baltimore and Rhode Island are calling out a, quote, decades-long campaign of deception, end quote, by those companies.
Well, the lawsuits target major fossil fuel companies, ExxonMobil, Chevron, BP, alleging that they deliberately deceived the public and policymakers on the dangers of fossil fuels. Now, they wouldn't do a thing like that.
We're back.
They claim that the energy companies wrongfully promoted products they knew would cause climate change. They knew what the harmful consequences would be, but engaged in a campaign to discredit the relevant scientific evidence and failed to issue any warnings that would have enabled the public to mitigate those harms. That's exactly what happened.
Well, yeah. I mean, people think this climate change thing is something that was just conjured up 10, 15 years ago or something.
Well, 1957, they knew about it.
Yeah, that's right. And scientists went and told President Lyndon Johnson, we have a problem, and which was, I think, in 1965. And, this is something, the first projections that this was going to happen came from the 19th century. And it's basically unfolded pretty much exactly the way it was projected to unfold, except during the 19th century, they thought this was probably a good thing because it would mean that you could grow agricultural products in Canada more easily.
And then along came the automobile.
Yeah.
Well, we got a picture here of a biogas plant.
We do.
Which, by the way, is methane collected from dairy farms. You got that kind of power coming into your house, don't you?
Methane from dairy farms?
Well, it's power from dairy farms.
Yeah, I'm buying cow power from Green Mountain Power. Yeah, Green Mountain Power has the cow power thing. A lot of places have got that kind of thing where you can buy power through a utility at a slightly increased price and know that the electricity that you're using is not coming from fossil fuels.
Bingo.
This article is...
Good idea.
Huh?
It's a good idea.
This article is from Reuters.
California sets a goal to double clean energy by 2030.
California adopted an emissions target for its electric sector that would double the clean energy capacity over the next decade and stop development of new natural gas plants. The target is a 56% reduction in CO2 emissions from 1990 levels. That's fairly early. By 2030. Some environmentalists, however, say this is not enough.
Well, the electricity providers will need to develop nearly 25 gigawatts of renewable energy and 10 gigawatts of storage to achieve this goal. That's about 8 times more than existed in the entire U.S. in 2018.
Yeah, but we're in a situation now where the market is developing in such a way that this is going to be a lot easier to do than people might imagine.
I think so. The times they are changing.
They are indeed. There's a 300 megawatt battery that is being built on the East River.
That's a bigawatt.
Yeah.
That's a bigawatt. That's in New York?
That's in New York. It's 300 megawatts.
Staten Island.
What's that?
That's in Staten Island, isn't it?
No, it's on the East River. I don't know if it's in Brooklyn or Queens, but it's what they're doing is they're tearing down 2 load-following natural gas plants to make room for one big battery. And
yeah, that's in Ravenswood. That's in the middle of Queens.
Okay.
59th Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
A similar thing is going on in Los Angeles, where they're building a battery of about the same size to support solar power that is going to provide the city. And the reason they're doing this is because it's cheaper than natural gas. So
that used to be a generating station.
Yes, it was. It was a big generating station. It had 16 units. And now it's got 2 still going, and they're tearing down the last 2 to put in a battery.
Yep. The times they are changing.
They are, and that battery will be fed by offshore wind eventually. But yes, we're in a situation where reducing emissions is going to become a whole lot easier because it's going to be cheaper to reduce the emissions than not to.
We'll touch base on that a little bit later too, I think.
Yeah, we're up to Sunday, April 12th, with an item from space
there
now, and we've got a picture of a satellite being prepared.
Yeah, it's called SORCE, SORCE, which stands for Spacecraft Solar Radiation and Climate Experiment.
Yeah.
And the title says, NASA satellite ends a 17-year mission measuring the sun's impact on climate. Now, that's significant.
It is.
You'll tell us about it.
I'll try to. A spacecraft measuring the amount of solar energy entering the Earth's atmosphere was shut down after 17 years. NASA said that greenhouse gas emissions from human activity have over 50 times the influence of changes in solar energy on global warming.
I don't think they ever expected that.
I don't know. I think the people at NASA probably did. Certainly, there are a lot of. What was that guy's name? Willie Soon, who was paid by Exxon and ExxonMobil and so forth to produce articles saying that the sun was behind climate change. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. I think the same guy was involved in cigarette smoking.
I don't know about that, but
I think he did. He wrote articles back in the day about how good cigarette smoking was for the health.
Well, yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, cigarette smoking ads featured doctors.
Oh, yeah, they did. They did indeed. And there were people who thought that it would improve your health. Anyway, this thing, basically, the people from NASA were just measuring the solar energy. Willie Soon was saying in peer-reviewed journals of astrophysics that the sun was behind climate change, and they may have been peer-reviewed, but they weren't peer-reviewed by climatologists or meteorologists, so I don't think they count. And among climatologists, we'll get into this further later on, I think.
Well, a quick takeaway here. This thing they call SORCE, as I mentioned, it monitors the amount, spectrum, and fluctuations in solar energy entering the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
Okay, which helps scientists understand how much variations in the sun's output are responsible for climate change. Turned out to be very little.
Yes, very little. Okay, that was from Spaceflight Now.
Yes, it was.
And our next one is from Solar Paces.
Yeah, a picture there of some molten salt thermal energy storage in South Africa.
With some very circuitous pipes.
Very interesting. They're not doing that anywhere around here.
No, they're not. The reason those pipes,
salt is a good way to store energy.
Yeah, the reason those pipes bend all over the place is because
expansion, isn't it?
Huh?
Expansion.
It's for expansion, and they've got some really hot stuff moving through there. So what do you have for title?
California looks for long-duration renewable energy storage contracts for 2026. That's coming up real quick.
Yeah, an optimal power portfolio for California to drive the world's fifth largest economy toward greenhouse gas reduction goals for 2030 and then to zero carbon by 2040 includes 1 gigawatt, as Tom would say, of long-duration solar energy storage. Long-duration energy storage, one analyst has said.
1 gigawatt is a drop in the bucket.
It's a gigawatt that's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. The roadmap includes 25 gigawatts of all new renewable generation.
Yeah.
With a target of supplying 100% of retail electricity with renewable resources by 2045.
Yeah. Okay.
It's going to happen. Economics going to do it.
Yeah. Our next item is from Taiwan News. Now, okay, Taiwan News, but they're writing about the Arctic, and we have a picture of a research station.
Yeah, I wonder what that great big black thing is.
Well, if you look at that, on the top, it looks like there's a little house or something.
Yeah.
There's a window, and there's a guy in there, or a girl.
Oh, it looks like it.
Yeah. So what do you have for title?
Coronavirus puts Arctic climate change research on ice.
Yeah, this is not good. Every year, 150 climate scientists of the East Grip project fly to Greenland to bore deep into the largest glacier to melt ice streams beneath it. The ice streams empty into the ocean, raising sea levels. This year, ice streams will go unmeasured because of the coronavirus. They can't put people up there because they're worried about the sickness.
Well, Greenland is presently closed to foreigners.
Yeah.
You know, they won't even let you into Greenland. They're trying to protect their own population, which is largely Inuit, and apparently susceptible to this.
Well, you know, the last time I looked, they'd had 11 cases in Greenland, and all of them were people who recovered.
Well, that's good.
They had no active coronavirus at all anymore. But the only way they can maintain that is to be very careful about people who might bring it in.
Well, they're basically shutting this whole thing down this year.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because it was good research that they're doing.
Yes. Okay, we're up to Monday, April 13th, and we have an item from Clean Technica and a map of the United States.
A map of the United States that shows that coronavirus and flooding are set to collide in the USA, according to the new Union of Concerned Scientists. And this is not to say that coronavirus is causing the flooding.
Although the two
happening in the same spots, though.
Yeah, the two of them are problematical. The governments of a number of the states, including South Dakota and Iowa and, states in the Midwest, have been reluctant to try to get people to stay home. And the result of that is that there may be some big increases in the number of people with the coronavirus in the days to come. It also happens that we're going to, let me read this. For communities already strained from dealing with the coronavirus, NOAA's flooding forecast paints a grave picture in which they must somehow meet the intertwined challenges of severe flooding and pandemic present them. This map shows
intertwined challenges.
Yeah, this map shows counties that have have moderate to major flood risk, not minor, just moderate to major. And of those counties, it shows the likelihood of large percentages of people getting the coronavirus. And we can see that southeastern South Dakota and eastern Iowa are places, for example, where you could have a large increase in the number of people. They're talking about up to 60% of the population getting it. And all of a sudden, you've got a flood, which means the people who are self-isolating at home have to go sleep in a high school gymnasium along with everybody else.
It's a problem.
It sure is. It sure is. Okay, that item was from Clean Technica. Do you have any more on that, Tom?
Yeah, did you read that yet?
I read the thing, yes, the synopsis.
Well, this spring, 23 of our 50 states face elevated flooding.
Yeah.
28 million people are at risk for moderate or greater flooding, as the map shows.
Yes.
1.2 million are at risk for major flooding. It's all rural places. This doesn't even include flash floods, which happen without any warning.
Yeah.
These are the traditional Mississippi floods where everything gets wet.
Yeah.
The areas facing both links tend to be rural, and it's putting a strain on hospitals.
Yeah. This is a situation that hopefully, it won't pan out the way the scientists are worried about it happening.
Well, they got two unrelated problems coming together here.
Yeah. Okay, our next item has a picture of a pump jack.
Another pump jack, amazing.
Pump jack, and I would think that pump jack would be in Russia because it comes from TASS, but it looks like there's a G on the pump jack itself, and I don't think they have a letter of that shape in Russian.
I didn't go that closely.
Yeah.
You're probably right. Record deal to cut oil output ends in a price war.
Okay. BBC said this. OPEC and its allies agreed on a record oil deal that will reduce global output by about 10% after a slump in demand. We talked about this earlier.
They were fighting about that.
They were indeed, and the Mexicans didn't want to have this cut at all.
At all, but they finally succumbed.
Right. The deal made by video conference, of course, is the largest agreed cut in oil production ever. OPEC Plus had announced plans on the deal for the 9th of April, but as I said, Mexico didn't agree, and they had to work the thing out into a final deal, which Mexico did agree to.
Well, global oil demand is estimated to have fallen by a third due to the coronavirus outbreak.
Yeah, and Tom, this is why I'm sitting there saying if the demand's diminished by a third, and we have no idea when this outbreak is going to end, what does that say about the future if the production cut is 10%? It means that the amount that they're producing is still going to be going into oil tankers that are at sea, except there's no oil tankers to dump the oil into.
We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, too.
Yeah.
Well, OPEC will reduce production by 10 million barrels per day and put some of that into storage. Another 5 million barrels are expected to be cut by other nations such as U.S., Canada, Brazil, and Norway, which aren't part of OPEC.
Right. And the Chinese are buying a lot of this, by the way. They're buying the oil because it's very, very cheap.
And they're storing it.
They're storing it. Yeah, they're figuring that the price is going to go up, and they're not planning on storing it to sell it. They're planning on storing it to use it. Okay, our next item is from Renew Economy.
Australian renewables hit 50% of the main grid's net demand on Easter Saturday. I'll mention what the main grid is a little bit further on.
And the picture here, by the way, is the Murrawara wind farm in Victoria. I think the people in Australia have weird names for that.
I was thinking that same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Renewable energy hit what may be a record level for renewable energy on the grid demand in early in the afternoon on Easter Sunday, when a combined output of rooftop solar, large-scale solar, wind, hydro, and so forth accounted for 50.4% of net load. And I'm sorry I did such a bad job of delivering that. But rooftop solar...
Plus, Australia is such a large and sparsely populated country.
Yeah.
Main grid doesn't doesn't cover the whole country.
Well, actually, it only covers about half the country.
The eastern states and South Australia, but it does not cover Western Australia, which is their biggest state, and the Northern Territory. So it's only, you're right, it's about half the country.
About half the country. And the Northern Territories and Western Australia have got grids that are segmented all over the place. Nice picture, though, of that wind farm, I think.
Yeah, look at it again. Interesting picture, yeah.
Well, we should go on, Tom. We're up to Tuesday, April 14th. We've got 6 items in 15 minutes. So this is a picture of a penguin.
Looks like it to me.
Huh?
Looks like it to me.
But it's walking in green.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. That area that it's walking in should be covered with snow.
Well, 5 visible signs of climate change in Antarctica.
This is from Clean.
That's the 5, but I don't think we got time to list them.
No. Clearly, Antarctica itself is not disappearing, but Antarctica, we know, and the life that depends on its glaciers and snowy mountains is being transformed. There are visible signs of this transformation. Here are a few that present a troubling picture of a warming world. And basically, this article is just pictures. I think it's...
This is a good article. All pictures. If you like pictures, this is the one to look up.
Yeah, and this was the one picture I chose to represent it. But it's really quite vivid when you think what it constitutes. Yes, and you know there are penguins that live in areas that are. I think the Galapagos Islands are tropical, aren't they?
I don't know.
Well, there are penguins living on the Galapagos Islands.
Yeah, down off South America.
Yeah, which is
in the ocean.
Kind of warm compared to what these guys are, but they're an entirely different species that has become accustomed to living in warm territories. And this guy is in trouble, and you know, because the warming lands are not what he's used to. Okay, you want to go on?
Yeah, let's move along.
We have a graph here showing electric sources and another article from Clean Technica.
Talk about the graph. Well, we'll talk about I'll mention what it says and then take a quick look at the graph because it is very interesting.
Yeah.
The fossil fuel renewable energy inflection point. Inflection point.
Yeah.
3 perspectives.
Okay, the world is struggling with a coronavirus pandemic, but even the darkest clouds can have a silver lining. Years from now, when historians look back and try to pinpoint exactly when renewables surged and fossil fuels contracted, this pandemic may be what they focus on.
I can't read the article from my computer. The blue lines and the gray lines represent different things than the red line.
Okay, the blue lines, which are darker, are the increase in renewables, which has been...
It's demand, though, isn't it?
What's that?
Demand, that's what they're actually using.
It's capacity expansion. Let's see. I believe it's capacity.
Capacity, okay.
Yeah. The gray lines represent non-renewable, new non-renewables.
So they're going down.
They're going down in the last actually about 10 years. They've been on a general decline where renewables have been pretty steadily
going up.
Yeah, and the
red line there.
The renewable share of the total, which is, you know, the one divided by the other, I guess, or the total the combination divided by renewables, is the renewables divided by the combination is the red line, and
that's going up very steadily.
Yeah, it's been going up steadily, and I don't think this article is right. I think the inflection point has actually passed a couple of years ago.
Well, the article mentions 3 people, the Los Angeles Times writers in New York.
Yeah.
The New York Times. You ought to read it. It's pretty good. There's a takeaway from it. The Earth may not get another chance to avoid overheating to the point where most living things will be threatened with extinction. That's scary. An opportunity for renewables may be knocking, but someone has to open the damn door.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, our next item is...
We're at the end here, because I remember looking at these guys.
Our next item is from Renew Economy. We have a picture of a couple of scientists.
John Geis and Ryan France.
Yeah.
Scientists set new solar power efficiency record at almost 50%. This is interesting because almost 50% doesn't seem like a lot.
It does not, but really good solar panels that you can buy today are like 20%.
That's absolutely true. That's just what it says. Well, I'll let you read it.
Okay, scientists at the U.S. DOE's National Renewable Energy Laboratory, which is called NREL, have a new world record solar energy conversion efficiency, producing an innovative 6-junction solar cell with 140 layers of semiconductor materials. It converts light into electricity at 47.1% efficiency.
I read into this article, and it looks like what they're looking at is to gather more energy from the heat of the sun than from the light of the sun.
Yeah.
And, the article doesn't say it, but they're looking to capture both.
Yes.
To increase the efficiency tremendously.
Yes. And what this means, in effect, if you think of good solar panels being 20% and this thing being 50%, that means that you can get the same amount of electricity out of 40% of the space.
Yep.
Or
more electricity.
Yeah, you can get 2.5 times. If you have a rooftop solar system, you could put in a new one, a replacement, and get 2.5 times the amount of electricity. So
interesting. It's going to happen eventually.
It's going to happen eventually. It won't happen this year or next. So if you put in a rooftop solar system, don't feel bad about it. But we are up to Wednesday, April 15th, with an item from the Washington Times.
It's a funny-looking picture. It looks like an egg.
It looks like a what?
An egg.
An egg? Okay. It's a
my version of it is kind of compressed, so it does look like an egg. But
okay. This is
the Earth as seen by NASA.
Yeah, who knew that NASA was where you could see the Earth? Anyway, it's from the Washington Times. I'm being a wise guy and doing a bad job of it. What do you got for a title, Tom?
NASA fights campaign to remove 97% climate change claims as the consensus is challenged. And they're talking about deception here.
Yeah. This is something that I found very interesting. Nothing sends climate skeptics into orbit faster than seeing NASA repeat the 97% climate consensus claim, but the effort to have the Obama-era declaration removed from the government website is suffering from a failure to launch.
And well, NASA's looking back and they're saying, hey, guys, we were right.
Yeah, they're saying this is true. Why should we take it down when it's true?
Well, I don't think people like the 97% there.
Well, I don't like the 97% because everything that I've seen that goes into this in more detail and more carefully says, no, it isn't 97%. It's more like 99% or even more. It's 97% is actually a low representation.
Well, that's interesting. Well, this Competitive Enterprise Institute is pursuing the suit. And if I remember correctly, that's a Koch thing, or it's Koch funded.
Yeah, this is what they're trying to do is they're trying to force NASA.
Yes, they call it Koch, the Koch brothers.
Koch brothers. They're trying to force NASA to take this statement down.
Exactly, and NASA said, "Why should we take it down? It's right."
It's right, exactly. And it's one of those things. People don't like the 97%. And if they don't like it, they should either show that it's not true, which I have not seen anybody do. I've seen some attempts at it, which were pretty ridiculous.
That's what this article is basically about.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a picture coming up here of some solar cells.
The Cascadilla solar farm. I thought Cascadilla was a tortilla with cheese.
Yeah, well, it's just a name for the solar farm because it's not in Cascadilla.
Okay, and this is from the Cornell Daily Sun.
The new Cascadilla Solar Farm sustainability powers 10% of Cornell University's annual electricity usage. Just this one solar farm.
Yeah. Cornell celebrated the opening of its sixth and largest major solar project on the 1st of March. The newly minted 18-megawatt Cascadilla Community Solar Farm will be responsible for generating 10% of Cornell's energy. Now, this is Cornell University. So
yeah, which is in Ithaca.
Yeah.
And this farm is about 10 miles east of Ithaca. They got farms all over the place down there.
They do. And
it's farms.
Cornell University is not small. So 10% of their electricity is not a small part of a load.
No, it's significant.
Yeah.
So it's part of the university's goal to become entirely carbon neutral by 2035.
Right. And, if you think about this and think about the various organizations, companies, and so forth, states that have that goal, it paints a picture of somebody having really stiff competition and losing customers, which is why they're fighting it so hard.
Well, if you got to look at it, why should you pay for the fuel when you don't have to?
Yeah, well, Tom, there's another thing, too. If you're going to burn oil or burn coal or burn gas, you got a machine that's going to happen in that has a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Be kept clean, they have to be lubricated, they have to be replaced when they break.
Yeah, sure.
Down.
You don't normally think about that, but that's absolutely right.
And solar farms, where are the moving parts?
I guess you could say the guy that keeps the panels clean.
Who may or may not show up. Yeah, we're entering a new era. We're entering into an era when we've got cars and we don't need buggy whips anymore. And what they're trying to do is use the Supreme Court and the legislature to make sure that we need buggy whips.
Nice try.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Well, we got one coming up here. Stronger action on climate change would benefit the economy.
Yeah, and we have a solar test facility in Widerstahl.
That picture, yeah, that's interesting.
It is.
Well, those different solar panels are different.
Yeah, and they're strung up in ways that I don't quite understand, but
Well, they're testing them.
Yeah, they're testing them. They've got ideas about what they want to find out that are different from anything that I can imagine. Okay, one main argument against taking action on climate change has always been that it's too expensive. But research published in the journal Nature finds the opposite is true. The net global economic benefit would range from $127 trillion to $616 trillion by 2100. And it makes
it's going to cost you money if you do it, but it's going to cost you more money if you don't.
Well, not only that, but this is a huge business opportunity. We can save an amazing amount of money by switching to renewable energy. And that's, if we look at that, it looks like we could pay.
Look at that from the standpoint of the economy. It's a winner.
Oh, it's an absolute winner. Do we go with fossil fuels and spend a lot of money, or do we go with renewables and make a lot of money? And that's basically what it comes down to. Millions of people, millions of jobs. But it's a completely different paradigm than what we've had in the past.
Well, what it says is the more the globe warms, the greater the economic damage.
Yes, but on the other hand, the more we switch to renewables, the greater the economic benefit.
Well, the last sentence in the paragraph says aggressive action would be beneficial to both the earth and the economy.
Exactly. Okay.
That's the last article.
We've run out of articles, and it happens that we did that just as we ran out of time.
Amazing.
Isn't it? Well,
George, it's been fun.
Yeah. And for all the people who've been watching, we hope you have a lovely week and come back next time.